As you may have noticed, there is a really scary economic meltdown happening in much of the world right now. As you may also have noticed, the Republican presidential ticket seems more frightened of Barack Obama than it is of consecutive 700-point stock market drops and whole countries turning up bankrupt.
I am just so fearful that this is not a man who sees America the way that you and I see America.
In short, who is the real Barack Obama?
Our opponent is someone who sees America as imperfect enough to pal around with terrorists who targeted their own country.
Why are the Republicans going after Obama as a scary, somehow foreign, not one of us terrorist lover? Why those specific lines of attack? Well, Democratic Congressman Gregory Meeks, who is African-American, told the New York Observer this, quote, "They are trying to throw out these codes. He's not one of us. That's racial. That's fear." Congressman Ed Towns, also an African-American Democrat, says, quote, "Racism is alive and well in this country, and McCain and Palin are trying to appeal to that." Barack Obama leads John McCain in today's Gallup Daily Tracking poll by 11 points for the second straight day. But a question among polling nerds, like me, remains debatable until Election Day. Is there such thing as a Bradley effect? The Bradley effect is a political science concept that's named for Tom Bradley, the mayor here in Los Angeles, who a generation ago lost the 1982 governor's race in California, despite polling that showed him far ahead of his white opponent before the election. Bradley was practically writing his acceptance speech until the moment that he lost.
Bradley does not believe that he'll lose the race simply because he's black.
Does that question, however, ever enter into your private thoughts?
Not once.
How different is America right now than California was in 1982? For all of the surveys suggesting that Barack Obama is ahead and pulling further ahead, could we see racism, unspoken and maybe even unconscious, until November 4th, change the election in the privacy of voting booths across the country? Do polling numbers for black candidates, in other words, need big Bradley effect asterisks? I could use a talking down on this one. Joining us now to do her best to try to talk me down is Melissa Harris Lacewell, who's an associate professor of politics and African American studies at Princeton University. Melissa, great to have you back on the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah, it's great to be here. Wish I was in L.A. with you.
Well, it's very nice here, I have to say.
Indeed.
Can you talk me down on this? Is the Bradley effect a poli-sci myth, or is there evidence that it's real?
Are you suggesting that there are political science myths? I can't believe that. No, of course it's real. There's every reason to believe that African American candidates probably need to be ahead by 4 or 5 points to actually be dead even. And this is true when African American candidates are running against white candidates in sort of statewide elections or in districts that are not predominantly African American. Now, the deal is that actually doesn't happen very frequently. Most African American elected representatives are in majority-minority districts. So we don't have a lot of data on this over time. What I will say is that we've seen Barack Obama be a state senator from Hyde Park, be a senator from Illinois, and there doesn't appear to be any Bradley effect that follows Barack Obama around.
What about in the Democratic primaries this year? I know there was a recent study from the University of Washington that found some evidence of the Bradley effect in some states, but they also found evidence of a reverse Bradley effect. Can you explain how that study worked?
Sure. Well, I know this study pretty well, in part because I know one of the brilliant social scientists who is a part of it, my friend and colleague Bethany Albertson. And she and I actually talked about this study over the course of the weekend. And what this work shows is that there was some evidence in some states that white Americans seemed to be polling a little bit higher, and Barack was underperforming with those white Americans. But interestingly, in southern states and in states where there were high proportions of black folks, white Americans were actually overperforming at the polls relative to what they had been telling public opinion researchers. So in fact, Barack was getting more white votes, or a greater percentage of white votes, than we thought he would get going into it. Now, I'm not sure that's a reverse Bradley effect, but it clearly does demonstrate that, at least when running against a white woman, there wasn't any particular racial impact for Barack Obama.
Well, if the McCain campaign wanted to try to strategize around the idea that there might be a Bradley effect for Obama, what would the McCain campaign do? What would be the contours of how they would run against Obama that would try to maximize this effect?
That's right. I mean, if you're a Republican running against Barack at this moment, or you're a white ticket running against a ticket that has an African American on it, you might as well try the Bradley effect to try to win. And so what I've seen the McCain-Palin camp doing is two really important things. One, kind of a mixing of anti-Islamic, anti-Muslim sentiment with an anti-black sentiment, calling him an outsider and calling him a terrorist, or implying that he may have terrorist connections as a way of sort of upping the ante on his outsider status. The other thing is more interesting. It's around the economy. And there's this claim that somehow it was Acorn and Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the loans to low-income African Americans that caused this economic crisis. Now, clearly that's just scapegoating when poor black people living in the inner city are being claimed, and blamed for an entire international destruction of the economy. But it's exactly the sort of thing that if you were going to try to initiate the Bradley effect, it would be one strategy that you could use, and they seem to be doing it.
Melissa Harris Lacewell of Princeton University, thank you for joining us and not really talking me down at all. But
No, come down. It's going to be okay.
Thank you, Melissa. Nice to see you.